Okay, so far we've talked about congruency, triangles. So if I have congruent triangles, and I know that this side is congruent to that side, and I know that this side is congruent to that side, and I know that this side is congruent to that side, and I also know that corresponding angles are congruent. That's a lot of parts. I can prove that these triangles are congruent, not having to find all 6 parts. So that's where we start talking about side, side, side. Meaning, if I know that this side, 3 sides are congruent to each other of another triangle, then everything else is going to be congruent as well. Okay, so let's start off with triangle congruence. And it says right at the top of the paper, it says if all corresponding angles and sides of 2 triangles are congruent. So all of the corresponding angles and all of the sides of 2 triangles are congruent, then the triangles are congruent. However, you can prove triangles are congruent using fewer parts. And that's the fewer parts. That's what we're going to be tackling right now. So side, side, side. So if I know that AB is congruent to DE, and I know that BC is congruent to EF, and I know that AC is congruent to DF, then triangle ABC is congruent to triangle DEF. So if I have 3 sides, then I know that the triangles are also congruent. Here's an example of a proof. Now these are you guys' favorite. The big thing is it really helps and is almost required that you label your diagram. So on the given, I'm going to label the diagram. So PQ is congruent to ST. So PQ is congruent to ST. I know that QR is congruent to RT. I'm going to use 2 tick marks here. Now that R is the midpoint. Okay, so I'm just going to make like a little note to myself that that's the midpoint. Okay? So following the proof, PQ is congruent to ST. That was given. QR is congruent to RT. Well, that was given. R is the midpoint. Well, that was given. PR is congruent to RS. Why is PR congruent to RS? There's that key word, definition of midpoint. Okay, so now by looking at my diagram, I can look at all the ticks. These 2 sides are congruent, these 2 sides are congruent, and these 2 sides are congruent. So I can say then that the triangles are congruent by side, side, side. Okay, number 2. This is one that I've talked about. This is what I call a bow tie. And when you see a bow tie, you should be thinking one thing, and that is vertical angles. You're going to have vertical angles in here somewhere. Okay, so if you ever see a bow tie, you should be thinking vertical angles. Okay, so again, I'm going to label stuff on my diagram. JL is congruent to MN. JL is congruent to MN. And that was given. K is the midpoint of JN and LM. So let's think about that. K is the midpoint of JN. Okay, so K is the midpoint of JN, which means that those pieces are going to be congruent. Oh, and that is given. So because this is the midpoint, I know that JK is congruent to KN. And then again, there's that key word, definition of midpoint. And then it says that LK is congruent to KM. Why would LK be congruent to KM? Let me go back. It says K is the midpoint of JN and LM. So K is also the midpoint going this way. That means that those pieces have to be congruent. And we have definition of midpoint again. And I have all three, these two sides congruent, these two sides congruent, these two sides congruent. So I know that the triangles are congruent by side, side, side. Okay, last proof for side, side, side. And this is a fill in the blank one. So I'm going to list my given. AC is congruent to AD. AC is congruent to AD. Make sure you're marking your diagram. And that is given. CB, so this little piece is congruent to BD, which is that little piece. And that was also given. Well, in this triangle, AB is in both triangle ABC and it's in ABD. So they share this side. This is a common, they share a side. You're going to have the reflexive property. So I know that AB is congruent to AB. Anything is congruent to itself by the reflexive property. And I am proving that triangle ABC, so even though the order does not matter, so we could say BAC and BAD, because we are specifically asked to prove that, this proof must match my bottom or my last statement. Triangle ABC is congruent to triangle ABD by, I have these two sides, and then this side is congruent to itself, so that is going to be by side, side,